China has several things going for it. I think China has a large amount of data, not only in mobile users, but also the amount of mobile payments, the amount of transactions, the amount of data that's being captured, the fact that most users are willing to trade off some degree of privacy for convenience makes the data acquisition even easier, and on top of that, a bigger market. Secondly, the Chinese entrepreneurial ecosystem with VC funding AI companies and moving very quickly into new spaces. A third big factor is the government support at a local level in cities that give subsidies to AI companies that move there, VCs that invest in AI, smart people who move there, overseas returnee experts. Another aspect is that the Chinese government has always been techno-utilitarian, which means when it comes a new technology, let's get the technology out there. And of course, there will be issues that come up, and let's course correct as they come up, as opposed to the Western countries, which tend to want to debate and resolve issues that may relate to privacy, security, bias, explainable AI. When there are jobs being affected, Truckers Union will appeal to the president of saying, can we slow down the adoption? Whereas in China, I think it's full speed ahead with AI. So these are the Chinese advantages. The U.S. advantage is quite significant in the research leadership, in particular with the education system. So I think the U.S. education system draws talents from throughout the world, and especially in graduate levels, is incomparable anywhere and way ahead of China and other countries. So to the extent, I think that American universities continue to be supported and bringing all the talent, and to the extent that the American visas are granted to the graduates rather than having to go back to their countries, including China, I think that's an interesting advantage that's very hard for any country to replicate in less than 30 or 40 years. If you break up AI into multiple types of applications, clearly in Internet AI, U.S. has a leadership position, but the Chinese companies with more data are catching up. With business AI, that is using data at banks and insurance companies and hospitals and so on, there are certain cases where Chinese companies may be moving forward due to accessibility of data, let's say in healthcare, but in most spaces, because data is not yet fully digitized in China and not structured or data warehoused, I think U.S. has a substantial leadership overall, probably for 5 years or longer. In the perception AI, that is using cameras and sensors everywhere to capture faces, motion, people, objects, and using that to derive value. For example, recognizing returning customers at a shop or counting attendance at a school. These are things that affect privacy, and I think Americans will tend to be cautious about widely adopting it, but the Chinese citizens will tend to be more willing to trade some privacy in return for convenience and certainly for security. So I think China will lead there. Lastly, with autonomous AI, that is AI that moves, so industrial robots, commercial robots, home robots, and also autonomous vehicles, I think that is a particularly impactful area because I envision the autonomous vehicle to eventually make everything affordable. It will reduce the costs of chips and semiconductors and sensors so that it will have a domino effect in making industrial commercial robots much more viable and less expensive, essentially becoming the operating system of the future. So who will win this biggest one? I think it's 50-50. This is very technology-rich area. U.S. clearly leads in technology, but the Chinese policies are accelerating the launch adoption of things like autonomous trucks and will not be slowed down by a trucker union appeal or lobby. And with AI, the faster you launch, the faster you collect data, the faster you use the data to improve your algorithm, the more you'll catch up. So it's a game where U.S. clearly leads China, but China is moving at a faster trajectory. So I place it at a 50-50 for that area.